They say soul food is just comfort food. But during the civil rights era, it was something else entirely. It was resistance on a plate. Picture this. It's August 1963. Kitchen windows steaming in Birmingham heat. Church ladies frying chicken at 4 a.m. because the march starts at dawn and protesters need strength. Empty cupboards. You'll transform neck bones into Sunday dinner. Last dollar. You make it feed 8 people, not 2. These weren't poverty meals. These were love letters. Recipes passed from grandmothers who survived slavery to mothers who fed freedom. Every pot of collards, every cast iron skillet, every church basement covered dish. Today, I'm taking you back, when cooking wasn't just about feeding bodies, it was about feeding movements, sustaining hope, preserving dignity. Stay with me. These 30 recipes tell the real story of how Southern black kitchens fueled a revolution. Number 1. Sunday fried chicken with hot sauce. Before the march, there was breakfast. Before the sit-in, there was strength. Before facing dogs and fire hoses, there was fried chicken wrapped in wax paper, carried in purses, eaten cold on bus rides to Montgomery. Mrs. Rosa Lee Williams stood in her kitchen, Memphis, Tennessee, May 1963, her daughter joining the student protests downtown. The girl needed something that would last, something that would sustain. Rosalie reached for the chicken she'd been soaking in buttermilk since midnight. Not for Sunday dinner this time, for survival. She dredged each piece through seasoned flour salt, black pepper, paprika, cayenne. Her cast iron skillet heated with lard, the fat shimmering and popping. She laid chicken pieces in carefully, skin side down first, the sound crackling through her kitchen. The smell filled every corner, peppery, rich, promising. Golden crust formed, sealing in moisture, creating armor around tender meat. During the Birmingham campaign, fried chicken became protest food. Women fried hundreds of pieces in church kitchens before dawn. Portable protein that didn't spoil in Alabama heat. That could be eaten with dignity while sitting in jail cells. Buttermilk-soaked chicken turning golden under fire. Hot grease transforming yesterday's fryer into today's fuel. Each crispy piece carried more than calories. It carried prayers, carried love, carried the message, "You will not break us." Rosa Lee's chicken fed 37 students that week. Her recipe traveled from Memphis to Birmingham to Selma, kitchen to kitchen, mother to daughter. The hot sauce she packed separately, Texas Pete in a baby food jar, became their defiance. Flavor in the face of hatred. Every bite declared, "We are here, we are fed, we will not be moved." Courage tastes like cayenne and burns just as fierce. Number 2. Neck bones and rice. Ham hocks and neck bones, that's it. 49 cents at the colored butcher. Simmer them low in a pot with onions until the meat falls tender from the bone. Add rice to the rich brown broth. Let it absorb every drop of flavor. The rice swells, turns creamy, becomes something more than grain. Steam rises carrying the scent of rendered fat and caramelized onions, filling the kitchen with warmth. The meat shreds easy, mixing through the rice like threads of gold through white fabric. James Peterson made his first pot in Jackson, Mississippi, January 1962. 6 children, wife working 2 jobs, $40 until Friday. Only neck bones left at the butcher when he got there Thursday night. This pot fed them 3 full days straight. In 1962, when black unemployment in the South hit 12.5%, families needed calories from pennies. Neck bones provided that. Cheap cuts white folks wouldn't buy. Bones that became banquets through patience and fire. Long cooking created tender meat. The bones releasing marrow, enriching the broth with fat and minerals. Rice absorbing everything, wasting nothing. Poverty, teaching the art of extraction, of getting every nutrient from every ingredient. James's neckbone recipe spread through Pearl Street. Depressiara, knowledge meeting civil rights era necessity. Men sharing butcher tips outside the colored unemployment office. Cooking becoming community action, teaching each other to stretch dollars into days. Neckbones don't lie about poverty, but they tell truth about ingenuity, about making 49 cents feed 8 mouths, about dignity simmering slow, extracting sustenance from what others discard. If you're still watching, you're tougher than most. Hit like if these survival stories hit different. Number 3. Salmon croquettes from canned fish. Before integration, fresh fish from the good grocery. After Jim Crow, canned salmon from the colored store, dented cans at discount prices. Survival rewrote every recipe. March 1961, when lunch counters refused to serve black customers in Greensboro. Dorothy Mason's grocery budget disappeared into bail money for her arrested nephew. Fresh meat was gone. 3 cans of pink salmon remained. She opened the dented cans. Her corner store sold for 19 cents. Not fresh fish. Preserved pink flesh. Necessity made it gourmet. Dorothy drained the salmon, picked through 4 bones, though she'd leave the soft ones for calcium. She mixed it with crushed crackers, minced onion, 1 precious egg. Her hands shaped the mixture into patties, each one pressed firm. Into hot oil they went, sizzling immediately, the smell savory and unexpected. The exterior crisped to deep golden brown, while the interior stayed tender and flaky. Each patty emerged perfect, defying its humble origin with restaurant-worthy appearance. During the lunch counter sit-ins, canned salmon became community currency. Protest bail money emptied cupboards across the South. Women transformed preserved fish into Friday night dinners. Every croquette represented choice. Feed your family or fund the movement. They did both. Fresh salmon was mild, expensive, available only at white-owned markets. Canned salmon was salty, affordable, sold at colored groceries without harassment. But canned salmon didn't require white approval. Dignity tastes like Dorothy's croquettes fed SNCC organizers working in Greensboro. Her kitchen became meeting place. Her croquettes became movement food. Young activists remembered those salmon patties decades later, how they tasted like love and determination mixed together. Every croquette carried message. Preservation feeds resistance. Community shares what it has. Movements run on mother's cooking. Love fries canned fish into sustenance. Would you have opened your kitchen to activists? Fed the movement while feeding your family? Drop a comment. I want to know if you'd have cooked for freedom. Number 4. Buttermilk cornbread in cast iron. Mrs. Elizabeth Turner's hands mix cornmeal with buttermilk. Little Rock, Arkansas. September 1957. 9 black students integrating Central High School. The whole city holding its breath. Her daughter was one of the 9. She needed something her daughter could eat cold. Something that would last through a day of harassment. Something that tasted like home when school felt like war. White cornmeal, buttermilk, 1 egg, baking powder, salt, bacon grease. Simple, ancient, perfect. She heated her cast iron skillet until the bacon grease smoked. Poured batter into sizzling fat. The edges set immediately, crisping golden while the center rose tender. 25 minutes at 425 degrees, transformed batter into armor crusty, outside protecting soft yellow interior. The smell of baking cornbread filled their kitchen like a prayer made solid. In 1957, cornbread became survival food for the Little Rock 9. Portable. Filling, requiring no refrigeration. Something that could be eaten between classes, in bathroom stalls, anywhere they could find. 60 seconds of peace. White students threw their lunch trays. Cornbread couldn't be knocked away so easily. Cornmeal cost 32 cents for 5 pounds. Buttermilk was what remained after churning butter. Eggs came from backyard hens. Cast iron lasted generations. Economic independence baked at 425 degrees. Elizabeth's cornbread recipe spread through Little Rock's black churches. Women baked hundreds of pieces, wrapped them in wax paper, sent them with the 9 students daily. Edible solidarity, tangible love, each piece saying, "You are not alone." Cornbread doesn't negotiate, doesn't apologize, doesn't soften. It stands firm, golden, strong, like 9 teenagers walking through hatred into history. Courage bakes until golden. Number 5. Collard greens with pot liquor. January 1965. Ingredients stacked simple. Collard greens, ham hock, onion, vinegar, red pepper flakes. Selma, Alabama. Wash the greens 3 times to remove grit and sand. Strip the tough stems, tear the leaves, rot. In a stock pot, simmer the ham hock with onions until the kitchen fills with smoky richness. Add the greens by handfuls, watching them collapse from bushels to cups. Pour in water and vinegar, add red pepper and salt. They cook low for 2 hours, the liquid turning dark green and mint. Ruch, the pot liquor that vitamin-packed broth, becomes medicine, becomes sustenance, becomes liquid resilience. Reverend James Bevel made his first pot in the church kitchen, feeding volunteers preparing for Bloody Sunday. 40 people to feed, $23 in the collection plate. These greens fed them all. March 1965. During the Selma to Montgomery marshes, collard greens sustained protesters. Churches cooked greens in 30-gallon pots. The pot liquor, the dark green broth, prevented dehydration during long march days. A atrocious liquid that could be drunk from cups or soaked up with cornbread. Bitter greens mellowing under long heat. Vinegar brightening. Pepper waking the palate. Pork lending depth. Transformation taking patience. Teaching that good things come to those who simmer, who wait, who persist. Ullo's church basement greens fed John Lewis before he crossed Edmund Pettus Bridge. Fed Diane Nash. Fed hundreds whose names history forgot but whose stomachs needed filling. Movement food. Marching fuel. Revolution in a pot. Every spoonful declared, "We are rooted. We are nourished. We will outlast you." Resilience simmers low and long until tender. Number 6. Red beans and rice, Monday wash day meal. Before washing machines, red beans simmering while women scrubbed laundry. After electric washers, red beans still simmering because tradition feeds more than hunger. Monday's meal never changed, even when Monday did. April 1963, when Birmingham's water cannons targeted children protesters. Marie Thompson's washing machine sat unushé. She was in jail from Saturday's march, but her mother cooked Monday's red beans anyway, preparing for Marie's release. Red beans waiting meant home was waiting. She soaked dried red beans overnight until they swelled fat and ready. Not convenience food, patient food. Tradition made edible. Marie's mother heated lard in a heavy pot, adding the Holy Trinity onions, bell peppers, celery, stirring until they softened and sweetened. She added the beans, ham hocks, bay leaves, thyme, cayenne. Water covered everything. The pot simmered for 3 hours, beans breaking down into creamy gravy, the smell filling every room with comfort and promise. Each bean became tender, the broth thickened naturally, turning brick red and rich. She served it over white rice, the grains soaking up flavor like memory soaks up meaning. During the Birmingham Children's Crusade, red beans became bail food, what mothers cooked while children sat in jail, what waited at home when they were released. Continuity in a pot. Promise that life continued despite arrests and fire hoses. Fresh beans required soaking, planning, time. But that time created community. Women cooking together while children marched. Pots simmering while lawyers negotiated bail. Tradition anchoring chaos. Monday stays Monday, even in revolution. Marie's mother's red beans fed 17 released protesters that Tuesday morning. Her kitchen became reunion place. Her beans became homecoming. The smell said, "You survived. You're home. You're fed. Love simmers while you fight." Every Monday pot carried message. Tradition survives disruption. Community feeds its own. Revolutions run on ritual. Hope simmers slow and feeds many. Would you have kept cooking Monday's meal while your child sat in jail? Maintain tradition during chaos. Drop a comment. I want to know how you honor what anchors you. Number 7. Fried catfish with cornmeal crust. Reverend Samuel Washington pulled catfish from the Tambigby River. West Point, Mississippi, July 1964. Freedom Summer volunteers arriving tomorrow. 23 college students needing dinner. The church collection paid for Bibles, not groceries. But the river provided. He needed protein that cost nothing but time. Fish that swam free in muddy water, while America argued about freedom on land. He cleaned the catfish at the riverbank, his knife working practiced and quick. The fillets went into buttermilk spiked with hot sauce, Southern baptism for river fish, pulling out the muddy taste. He dredged each piece through seasoned cornmeal mixed with black pepper, cayenne, garlic powder, salt. His cast iron skillet heated with peanut oil until it shimmered, almost smoking. The catfish hit the oil with violent sizzling, the sound of transformation. Golden crust formed immediately, sealing moisture inside, creating textural contrast between crispy exterior and tender white flakes. The smell, peppery, river fresh, hot oil, filled the church fellowship hall with promise. During Freedom Summer 1964, fried catfish fed voter registration workers across Mississippi. Free protein from rivers and lakes. Fish that didn't require money, just knowledge of where they swam and how they bit. Cornmeal coating created crispy armor. Hot oil worked transformation magic, with a fish becoming feast through fire and seasoning. What segregationists couldn't control, water, fish, the knowledge to catch them, the skill to cook them. Samuel's catfish fed students from New York, California, Massachusetts. Their first taste of Mississippi catfish came with stories of the river, lessons about survival, understanding that freedom work runs on local knowledge and community food. Every crispy piece declared, "We feed our own, we feed our allies, we feed the movement." Resistance tastes like river fish fried golden. Number 8. Chicken gizzards and gravy gizzards and flour. 28 cents total. 5 people to feed. Brown the gizzards slow in bacon grease until they release their essence. Add flour to make roux, stirring constant until it darkens to chocolate. Pour in water slowly, whisking to prevent lumps, creating silky gravy. The gizzards simmer in this gravy until they turn tender, their tough muscles softening under patient heat. The smell fills the kitchen, earthy, rich, substantial. The gravy thickens to the perfect consistency, coating a spoon, promising fullness. Serve over rice or biscuits, letting the gravy soak into every grain, every layer. Thomas Jefferson Brown made his first batch in Montgomery, Alabama, December 1955. Bus boycott entering its second month. His wife Rosa Parks already famous. Their grocery budget crushed by taxi fares and carpools instead of bus fare savings. Only gizzards left at the butcher Thursday evening. Cliff's gravy fed them through the weekend. During the Montgomery Bus Boycott, December 1955 to December 1956, gizzards sustained families whose budgets shifted. Bus fare savings disappeared into carpool gas money. Cheap organ meats became staples. Gizzards required long cooking, but transformed into tenderness. Flour and fat creating gravy. Time creating tenderness. Patience extracting flavor from what others rejected. Boycott teaching that dignity costs money, but feeds the soul. Economics forcing creativity. Creativity revealing strength. Thomas's gizzard gravy recipes spread through Montgomery's carpooling network. Men trading cooking tips while driving strangers to work. Organ meat knowledge, traveling faster than bus schedules. Community teaching each other to stretch pennies during the long walk to justice. Gizzards tell truth about sacrifice. About how boycotting buses meant eating cheaper. About how freedom costs comfort. About how dignity simmers tough meat into sustenance. Resistance requires gravy, patience, and fire. It's like if you'd walk a year to change the world. I'm reading every comment from people who understand what freedom costs. Number 9. Sweet potato pie with cane syrup. Sweet potatoes grew where cotton wouldn't. Sugar was rationed, but cane syrup, that was Southern alchemy, dark, thick, permanent sweetness that couldn't be controlled or taxed the same way. November 1960, when 6-year-old Ruby Bridges integrated William Frantz Elementary School in New Orleans. Her grandmother baked sweet potato pie every Sunday, continuing tradition while federal marshals escorted Ruby through screaming crowds. The pie said, "Life continues. Sweetness survives hatred." She peeled sweet potatoes grown in her own yard, not bought, earned through sweat and dirt. Necessity made them precious. Ruby's grandmother boiled the sweet potatoes until they surrendered to a fork, then mashed them smooth while still hot. She mixed in cane syrup, butter, saved from the week, cinnamon, nutmeg, vanilla, 3 eggs. Her hands made the crust from flour and lard, rolling it thin and fitting it into the tin. The filling poured golden orange, thick and promising. Into the oven it went, baking until the center set and the top developed that characteristic slightly cracked surface. The smell cinnamon and sweet potato and caramelizing sugar filled their kitchen despite the chaos outside. In 1960, sweet potato pie represented continuity. What grandmothers baked regardless of integration battles. What waited at home after days of harassment. Tradition that hatred couldn't touch because it existed in black kitchens, black ovens, black homes where white rage couldn't reach. Sweet potatoes cost nothing if you grew them yourself. Cane syrup lasted forever in the pantry. Eggs came from backyard hens. Independence baked at 350 degrees until set. Economic self-sufficiency tasted like spiced sweetness. That pie fed Ruby every Sunday during first grade. Fed her family when neighbors stopped speaking to them. Fed federal marshals who protected her. Sweetness in the face of bitterness. Condition in the face of change. Every slice declared, we continue, we celebrate, we survive. Dignity tastes sweet, even when life tastes bitter. Hope bakes until golden. Would you have kept baking pies while your child faced mobs? Maintained sweetness during bitterness? Drop a comment. I want to know what traditions anchor you through storms. Number 10. Black-eyed peas and ham hocks. Mrs. Clara Jefferson stood in her kitchen at Lanzay, Georgia, January 1964. Martin Luther King Jr. had just been named Time magazine's Man of the Year, but in her neighborhood, unemployment still hit 14%. The new year needed luck, needed hope, needed tradition that promised prosperity. She needed something that fed 12 people for $3. Something that tasted like faith, when faith was all they had. Dried black-eyed peas soaked overnight until swollen and ready. Ham hocks smoked and salt-cured, bought for 98 cents. Onions from her garden. The trinity of southern survival. Clara put the ham hocks in her stock pot first, covering them with water, simmering until the kitchen filled with smoky richness. She added the drained peas, chopped onions, bay leaves, black pepper. No salt, yet the ham hocks would provide that. The pot simmered for 2 hours, peas softening but holding shape. The pot liquor turning creamy white with released starch. The ham hocks surrendered their meat, falling tender from the bone. She stirred, tasted, and adjusted each spoonful, becoming prophesy, becoming promise that this year would be better. During the civil rights movement, New Year's black-eyed peas carried extra weight, not just luck, desperation for change. Every pot cooked on January 1st represented hope that this year would bring voting rights, job access, school integration, basic dignity. Black-eyed peas swelling in water, ham hocks releasing flavor, time creating tenderness from dried legumes and smoked pork, patience teaching that transformation requires soaking, simmering, faith that heat and time work magic. Clara's peas fed her family, her neighbors. 3 SCLC organizers planning Atlanta's next moves. Her kitchen became strategy room. Her peas became movement fuel. The tradition-eating black-eyed peas for luck took on new meaning when luck meant survival and change. Every spoonful declared, this year will be different. This year we rise. This year luck bends toward justice. Hope simmers in every pot, on every stove, on every New Year's Day. Number 11. Before the march, pork chops browned and smothered. After the dogs and hoses, pork chops still smothered because comfort food matters more during war. Consistency feeds more than bodies, it feeds spirits. August 1963, when the March on Washington brought 250,000 to the National Mall. Annie Lou Hamer returned to Ruleville, Mississippi, exhausted from organizing, her voice hoarse from testifying. Her sisters smothered pork chops anyway. Wednesday's meal, march or no march. Tradition waiting at home meant home still existed. She seasoned thin pork chops with salt, pepper, paprika, garlic powder, not fancy cuts, shoulder chops, what they could afford. Annie's sister heated lard in her cast-iron skillet, the fat shimmering hot. She dredged the chops in flour and laid them in gently, the sizzling immediate and loud. Each side browned deep golden, developing crust and flavor. She removed the chops, made gravy from the drippings, adding flour, stirring until brown, pouring in milk slowly to create silky richness. The chops returned to the skillet, nestled in gravy, covered. They simmered 45 minutes, the pork turning so tender it threatened to fall apart, the gravy thickening to perfect consistency, coating everything it touched. During the voter registration drives of 1963, 1964, smothered pork chops became reunion food. What women cooked when organizers returned from dangerous county roads would said welcome home alive without having to say it aloud. Gravy covering everything like love covers fear. Browning created flavor. Gravy created tenderness. Smothering meant protection, meant covering with love, meant transforming tough into tender. Long cooking teaching that pressure and heat together create something better than either alone. That Wednesday meal fed Annie Lou and 9 other activists planning Mississippi's Freedom Summer. Her sister's kitchen became headquarters. Her pork chops became strategy session fuel. The gravy soaked into rice, into biscuits, into memory. Every bite declared, home remains. Comfort survives. Tradition outlasts hatred. Love smothers tough times until tender. Resistance tastes like gravy over everything. Number 12. Macaroni and cheese baked, church style. Deacon Robert Lee Williams carried his mother's macaroni and cheese to 16th Street Baptist Church, Birmingham, Alabama, September 1963. 20 pounds of pasta, 10 pounds of cheese, feeding Youth Day participants. The dish sat in the church kitchen, golden and bubbling. 2 hours later, the bomb exploded. 4 girls died. The macaroni and cheese survived, covered in dust and debris. They served it anyway at the funeral repast, because life continues, because the dead need honoring, because the living need feeding, because macaroni and cheese means community, means church, means we gather even in grief. Robert's mother boiled elbow macaroni in salted water until barely tender, knowing it would cook more in the oven. She made cheese sauce from butter, flour, whole milk, stirring constantly until thick and smooth. Sharp cheddar cheese melted in, turning the sauce golden orange and glossy. She mixed pasta and sauce together, poured it into buttered baking dishes. More cheese on top, then breadcrumbs for texture. Into the oven they went, baking until bubbly at the edges and golden brown on top. The smell cheese and butter and browning carbohydrates promised comfort despite everything. In 1963, church macaroni and cheese fed movements, youth meetings, strategy sessions, after protest meals, funeral repasts, the dish that showed up for every black church gathering, every community moment, every time people needed feeding body and soul. Cheese sauce required constant stirring, patience, attention, love made visible through sustained effort. The crispy top layer rewarding those who waited. The creamy interior proving that something good existed beneath the surface. That macaroni and cheese fed 400 mourners, fed parents who buried children, fed a community that refused to break. The recipe passed from Robert's grandmother to his mother, to him carried on. Tradition stronger than dynamite. Every creamy, cheesy bite declared, we gather, we feed each other, we survive together. Community bakes at 350 degrees until golden. Love bubbles at the edges and feeds multitudes. Number 13. Buttermilk biscuits from scratch. Mrs. Dorothy Height stood in a church kitchen, Washington, D.C. April 1968. Dr. King assassinated 4 days ago. The Poor People's Campaign continuing despite grief. Volunteers arriving from across the country needing breakfast. She needed something fast, filling, made from what the church pantry held. Her hands reached for flour. She needed to feed hope when hope felt dead. Needed to feed forward momentum when the world wanted to stop. Needed biscuits because biscuits say, morning still comes. We still rise. Cold butter cut into self-rising flour using a pastry cutter until the mixture resembled coarse crumbs. Buttermilk poured in, just enough to bring the dough together. Her hands worked quickly, knowing that overworking would make them tough. She patted the dough out gently, cut circles with a juice glass. Into a hot oven they went, baking 12 minutes. The smell of baking biscuits filled the church yeast and butter and promise. They emerged, golden-topped, flackle-eyed, tender enough to pull apart with gentle pressure. Steam rising from their centers like prayers made visible. During the Poor People's Campaign, May to June 1968. Biscuits fed, Resurrection City, the protest encampment on the National Mall. Church ladies baked thousands. Portable, filling, requiring minimal ingredients. Carbohydrates that said, we continue. We feed the movement even after we bury the leader. Flour and buttermilk and butter. Simple ingredients transformed through technique. Cold fat creating flaky layers. Quick handling preserving tenderness. Biscuits teaching that simple things done well sustain better than complex things done poorly. Dorothy's biscuits fed protesters for 42 days. Her church kitchen became production facility. Her recipe multiplied across DC's black churches. Women baking through grief. Flour dusting their hands like snow in spring. Biscuits rising despite everything. Every flaky layer declared, we rise, we continue, we feed forward. Morning still comes even after the longest night. Cliff bakes at 450 degrees for 12 minutes. Cliff-like if you'd keep baking even after your leader falls. I'm reading every comment from people who understand that movements continue. Number 14. Fried green tomatoes. June 1966. Ingredients pulled from necessity. Green tomatoes from the vine before they ripened. Cornmeal, flour, buttermilk. Lowndes County, Alabama. Slice the tomatoes thick, 1/4-inch rounds. Season with salt and pepper. Let them sit while you prepare the dredging station. Mix cornmeal with flour for maximum crunch. Dip each slice in buttermilk. Press into the cornmeal mixture, coating both sides completely. Heat oil in a cast iron skillet until shimmering. Lay tomato slices in carefully. Don't crowd them. They sizzle immediately. The cornmeal crust crisping to deep golden brown. Flip once. Cook until both sides achieve perfect crunch. The interior steams, the green tomato flesh turning tender tart, creating contrast between crispy exterior and soft acidic center. Willie Mae Lewis fried her first batch because her tomato plants weren't producing fast enough. 9 children hungry. Gardener slow. Green tomatoes on the vine were better than no tomatoes at all. Those fried slices fed her family through 3 dinners that week. In 1966, during the Meredith March Against Fear, fried green tomatoes fed marchers when red tomatoes weren't ripe yet. Gardens providing what they could, when they could. Protesters learning to eat vegetables before their time because hunger doesn't wait for harvest. Cornmeal creating crunch. Hot oil working transformation. Tart green tomatoes becoming crispy, savory delights. Necessity teaching that ripeness is optional. That good things come from adapting to what exists, not waiting for perfection. Willie Mae's fried green tomatoes became legendary on her street. Women asking for her cornmeal ratio. Children requesting them instead of red tomatoes. Marchers remembering them decades later, how they tasted like summer and survival mixed together. How they proved that waiting isn't always required. Every crispy slice declared, use what you have. Transform what others call unripe. Green works when red isn't ready. Survival fries necessity into deliciousness. Adaptation tastes tangy and crisp. Number 15. Chitlins, cleaned and fried. They say chitlins smell like poverty, but in Mrs. Bernice Robinson's kitchen, Charleston, South Carolina, November 1964, they smelled like Saturday, like tradition, like food that white folks refused, but black folks transformed into something worth celebrating. She needed protein for the citizenship school, graduation, 32 adults who'd learned to read so they could register to vote. A celebration requiring food that represented journey, taking what others discarded, cleaning it thoroughly, transforming it into dignity. 10 pounds of chitlins, raw and daunting. Not pretty, honest. Bernice cleaned them for 4 hours at her kitchen sink. Cold water running constant. Removing every bit of waste, every membrane, turning them inside out to clean again. Her hands worked, practiced and patient. This was meditation, was preparation, was love made visible through labor. She boiled them with onions, bay leaves, vinegar to tenderize and remove more smell. Then she cut them into pieces, seasoned with salt, pepper, garlic powder, hot sauce, dredged in cornmeal and flour. Into hot oil they went, frying until crispy golden, the smell transforming from challenging to savory and rich. Each piece emerged crunchy outside, tender inside, vindicated. During the citizenship schools of 1957 to 1970, chitlins represented transformation. Adults who couldn't read, learning to decipher voter registration forms. Organ meats nobody wanted becoming celebration food. Both required patience. Both required seeing value where others saw waste. Cleaning chitlins took hours, but those hours taught lessons. That dignity requires work. That transformation requires time. That value exists in what others reject. That patient hands create miracles. Those fried chitlins fed 32 new voters. Fed Septimus Clark, who started the citizenship schools. Fed Dorothy Cotton. Fed people whose names history forgot but whose votes changed South Carolina. Each crispy bite tasted like victory, like literacy, like franchise. Every piece declared, we transform what you reject. We find value where you see none. We clean, prepare, and dignify. We turn your discards into our celebrations. Resistance tastes like crispy chitlins and tastes like triumph. Would you spend 4 hours cleaning food to feed people learning to vote? Would you find dignity in what others discard? Drop a comment. I want to know what you'd transform. Number 16. Peach cobbler with butter crust. Mrs. Coretta Scott King stood in her kitchen, Atlanta, Georgia, July 1965. Voting Rights Act passed. Her husband's work succeeding despite constant death threats. Peaches from Georgia orchards, sitting on her countersweet, ripe, juice running when you pressed them. Tonight they'd celebrate. Tomorrow they'd march again. But tonight, cobbler, she needed something that tasted like victory. Something sweet after years of bitter. Something that said, "We're winning, keep going." Fresh peaches peeled and sliced, tossed with sugar and a little flour to thicken their juice. She made biscuit dough flour, butter, sugar, baking powder, milk. Peaches went into a buttered baking dish first, their juice already releasing and pooling. Spoonfuls of biscuit dough dropped on top, rough and rustic, leaving gaps for steam to escape. A sprinkle of sugar over the dough for extra sweetness and crunch. Into a hot oven it went. The biscuit topping baked golden brown while peach juice bubbled up around the edges, the smell filling her home with summer and promise. The crust turned crispy on top, absorbed peach juice on the bottom, creating layers of texture. During the summer of 1965, peach cobbler became hope food, what black families baked when good news came. Court victories, passed legislation, successful protests. Georgia peaches transformed into celebration. Sweetness earned through bitter years. Butter and flour creating tender crust. Peaches releasing their essence under heat. Sugar amplifying natural sweetness. The alchemy of baking, teaching that good ingredients become great through fire and time and patient attention. That cobbler fed SCLC staff celebrating the Voting Rights Act. Fed activists who'd marched from Selma to Montgomery. Fed Coretta's children who needed to taste victory, needed to know that their sacrifices led somewhere sweet. Every peach-soaked bite declared, "We earned this sweetness. We survived to celebrate. We continue." Victory tastes like Georgia peaches baked until bubbling. Hope has a golden crust and a warm center. Number 17. Hoppin' John New Year's tradition. Before civil rights victories, Hoppin' John on New Year's for luck. After Voting Rights Act, Hoppin' John for luck and memory and tradition that survived everything. The dish stayed the same. The meaning deepened. January 1966, when the first election under the Voting Rights Act approached. Thomas Washington prepared Hoppin' John in Selma, Alabama, exactly as his grandmother had taught him. Black-eyed peas, rice, salt pork. But this year, cooking it felt different. This year, they could vote. Luck wasn't just hoping anymore. It was action. He soaked black-eyed peas overnight until they swelled ready. Not shortcuts. Tradition done right. Respect made edible. Thomas cooked salt pork in a heavy pot until it rendered fat and crisped. He added onions, let them soften and sweeten in the pork fat. The soaked peas went in next, covered with water, bay leaves, black pepper, a pinch of cayenne. It simmered until the peas turned tender, but held their shape. Meanwhile, he'd cooked rice, separate long grain, fluffy, perfect. The peas and their pot liquor mixed with the rice, each grain absorbing flavor. The black-eyed peas distributed throughout, like promises fulfilled. The smell filled his kitchen earthy savory, rich with pork fat and hope. During January 1966, Hoppin' John took on new meaning across the South. Not just luck, tradition, not just New Year's superstition. This was fuel for people registering to vote for the first time in their lives. For people turning luck into legislation, hope into action. Black-eyed peas swelling overnight. Salt pork releasing flavor. Rice absorbing everything. The dish teaching that luck requires preparation, requires ingredients coming together, requires patience and heat, and perfect timing. Thomas's Hoppin' John fed 17 first-time voters on New Year's Day before they registered. His kitchen became celebration space. His recipe became ritual for courage. The tradition eating peas for luck transformed into eating peas for strength to claim what was finally, legally theirs. Every spoonful declared, luck is preparation meeting opportunity. Tradition empowers action. Hugh tastes like black-eyed peas and rice mixed together, inseparable. Change comes to those who cook, who gather, who eat together, who vote together, who vote together. Number 18. Fried okra. Ms. Fannie Lou Hamer pulled okra from her garden, Ruleville, Mississippi. August 1964. Freedom Summer volunteers needed feeding. 17 college students from the North, unused to Mississippi heat, unused to Mississippi food, unused to Mississippi danger. She'd feed them anyway. Feed them vegetables that grew where she planted them, in soil she owned, in a state that tried to deny her everything. She needed something that grew fast, that fed many, that tasted like Mississippi, despite Mississippi's hatred. Okra grew in that delta heat, like it was born for battle. She washed the okra, sliced it into rounds, each slice revealing star-shaped interior with tiny seeds. She tossed it with cornmeal, salt, and pepper, simple coating, nothing fancy. Her cast-iron skillet heated with bacon grease, the fat popping hot. The ochre went in batches, frying until the cornmeal crust turned golden and crispy. The slime that makes okra controversial disappeared under high heat and cornmeal's embrace. Each piece emerged crunchy, savory, addictive. The volunteers, skeptical of okra, reached 4 seconds, thirds, understanding suddenly why Southerners loved this vegetable. During Freedom Summer 1964, Frito Cray introduced Northern volunteers to Southern survival food, vegetables that thrived in oppressive heat, that grew fast, that fed many from small spaces, that cost almost nothing if you had seeds and dirt and determination. Cornmeal coating created texture. Hot grease eliminated slime. Frying transformed controversial vegetable into crispy perfection. Keep teaching that some things only become themselves under pressure, under fire, under conditions that would destroy lesser plants. Fannie Lou's fried okra fed students who'd register 17,000 black voters that summer, fed organizers who'd create freedom schools, fed young people who'd risk their lives for other people's rights. Her garden became movement infrastructure. Her okra became revolution food. Every crispy piece declared, I grew this. I own this land. You can't take this from me. Resistance grows in gardens and fries golden in cast iron skillets. Sovereignty tastes like vegetables you planted yourself. Number 19. Liver and onions. Liver and sliced onions. 67 cents. 7 mouths to feed. Soak the liver in milk to draw out the metallic taste. Drain and pat dry. Season with salt, pepper, dust with flour. Heat butter in a skillet until foaming. Lay the liver slices in gently. Don't overcrowd. They cook fast, 2 minutes per side, no more, or they turn tough and bitter. Remove liver. Keep warm. Add sliced onions to the same pan. Let them soften and caramelize in the liver drippings and butter. They turn sweet, golden, melting. Pour the onions over the liver, their sweetness balancing the organ meat's mineral intensity. Marcus Henderson cooked his first batch in Nashville, Tennessee, February 1960. Sit-in student, arrested Tuesday, bailed out Thursday, broke until Monday's paycheck. Only liver left at the butcher by the time he got there Friday evening. Those onions made liver taste like redemption. In 1960, during the Nashville sit-ins, liver became protest food. Cheap protein when bail money emptied bank accounts, when choosing between eating well and eating at all, when the movement consumed paychecks and liver costs less than anything else, with that much iron and protein. Milk soaking, removing bitterness. Fast cooking, preserving tenderness. Onions adding sweetness to balance mineral intensity. Necessity teaching that organ meats sustain when muscle meats become unaffordable. That dignity doesn't require expensive cuts. Marcus's liver recipe spread through Fisk University's activist network. Students teaching each other budget, cooking between arrests, organ meat knowledge, traveling faster than bail money. Communities showing each other how to eat for pennies while changing the world for everybody. Liver doesn't apologize, doesn't pretend to be something else. Tastes like iron, like blood, like life itself, concentrated and honest. Like students who didn't apologize for demanding equality. Like truth served straight, organ honest, covered in sweet onions. Every bite declared, we eat what sustains us. We transform cheap into nourishing. We find dignity in what others reject. Survival tastes metallic and mineral and real. Revolution runs on iron and courage, and 67 cents. Number 20. Potato salad picnic and protest style. Mrs. Ruby Doris Smith Robinson made potato salad at 3 a.m. Atlanta, Georgia. June 1966. SNCC planning sessions starting at dawn. 17 organizers arriving from across the South, hungry and exhausted and determined. She needed something that traveled well, tasted like home, and fed bodies preparing for another season of struggle. She needed food that said, we care for each other. We feed each other. We continue together. Potato salad says all of that, without saying anything at all. She boiled 5 pounds of potatoes until fork tender, but not falling apart firm enough to hold their shape when mixed. While they cooled, she chopped onions, celery, hard-boiled eggs. Her dressing mixed mayonnaise, yellow mustard, a splash of pickle juice, salt, pepper, paprika. When the potatoes reached the right temperature, cool but not cold. She cubed them roughly and folded everything together gently. Too much stirring would make mush. The right touch would create creamy salad where each potato piece stayed distinct but coated in tangy dressing. Into the refrigerator overnight to let flavors marry and meld. During the 1960s, potato salad fueled every movement gathering. Church picnics after marches, planning sessions that ran through meals, protest lunches eaten on courthouse steps, community food that required no reheating, that traveled in any weather, that fed multitudes from simple ingredients. Potatoes absorbing dressing, mustard providing tang, mayonnaise creating richness. Overnight marrying deepening flavor, teaching that some things improve with patience, with time, with letting elements combine fully before serving. That potato salad fed SNCC's Black Power discussions, fed debates that would reshape the movement, fed Stokely Carmichael, John Lewis, Ruby herself. Her kitchen became theory laboratory. Her potato salad became transition food, between eras, between philosophies, between what was and what would be. Every creamy, tangy bite declared, we gather, we feed forward, we sustain each other through change. Community tastes, like potato salad made with care. Movements run on mayonnaise and mustard and mothers who cook at 3 a.m. Would you wake up at 3 a.m. to feed the movement? Would you make potato salad when the revolution needed lunch? Drop a comment. I want to know what you'd cook for freedom. Number 21. Candied yams with marshmallows. Before Thanksgiving 1967. Candied yams as tradition. After the summer of love, candied yams as defiance, as black family continuity, as refusing to let protest culture erase soul food culture. Sweet potatoes stayed sweet. Families stayed families. November 1967, when the Vietnam War was taking black sons at twice the rate of white sons. Sarah Mitchell prepared Thanksgiving dinner in Oakland, California, her eldest son home on leave before deploying. She made candied yams exactly as her mother had, tradition, anchoring terror, sweetness, balancing the bitter knowledge of where he'd go next week. She peeled sweet potatoes grown in her backyard, victory garden, not stall but earned through labor and California's sun, autonomy baked into every bite. Sarah sliced the sweet potatoes into thick rounds, arranged them in a buttered baking dish. She made syrup from butter, brown sugar, cinnamon, nutmeg, vanilla, melting it together until it turned glossy and thick. The syrup poured over the potatoes, coating every piece. Into the oven they went, baking until the potatoes turned tender and the syrup caramelized around the edges. 30 minutes in, she pulled them out, topped them with marshmallows. Back in the oven until the marshmallows toasted golden brown on top, melting into the syrup below. The smelt cinnamon, caramelized sugar, toasted marshmallow promised comfort despite war, despite death, despite everything. During the late 1960s, when Black Power emerged and some activists rejected soul food as slavery's legacy, candied yams became contentious, but mothers kept making them. Because tradition feeds more than bodies, because continuity matters, because sweet potatoes remember where they came from and so do we. Brown sugar creating caramel, butter adding richness, marshmallows providing whimsy and texture, the dish teaching that sweet things can exist alongside bitter realities. That joy doesn't negate struggle. That families need traditions, especially when times are hard. That Thanksgiving fed Sarah's son and 12 other soldiers home on leave. Her kitchen became sanctuary. Her candied yams became memory, what they'd remember in rice paddies, in foxholes, in moments when Oakland seemed impossibly far away and sweet potatoes seemed like a dream. Every sweet bite declared, we continue traditions, we honor heritage, we feed our soldiers before we send them to die. Love tastes like brown sugar and melted marshmallows. Homie's candied yams on Thanksgiving, even when the world burns. Would you have cooked Thanksgiving dinner, knowing your son might not survive to see another? Would you have made it sweet anyway? Drop a comment. I want to know how you feed hope. Number 22. Cornmeal fried whiting fish. Deacon James Miller walked to the fish market, Chicago, Illinois, March 1968. West Side riots still smoldering after Dr. King's assassination. His corner store burned, his church damaged. But the fish market on 63rd Street still stood, still sold whiting for 49 cents a pound. He bought 5 pounds. Feeding people was ministry when ministry buildings burned. He needed something that fried fast, fed many, and tasted like normal when nothing felt normal. Fish that poor folks could afford when grocery stores were ash and rubble. He cleaned the whiting at his kitchen sink, scaling and gutting, leaving the heads on. That's where the flavor lived, where the fat concentrated. He made a simple dredge: cornmeal, flour, salt, black pepper, cayenne, garlic powder. Each fish pressed into the mixture, coating completely. His largest skillet, heated with oil, shimmering hot. The whiting went in 2 at a time, sizzling violently. The smell immediately savory and promising. The cornmeal crust turned crispy and golden, while the fish flesh stayed moist and flaky. 7 minutes total. Fast food before fast food meant anything. During the Holy Week uprising of April 1968, fried whiting fed displaced families across Chicago's West Side. Church kitchens that survived became emergency restaurants. Fish that cost almost nothing becoming emergency rations. Food saying, "We still feed our own. We still care." Buildings burn, but community survives. Cornmeal creating maximum crunch. Hot oil working fast transformation. Cheap fish becoming crispy, delicious sustenance. Chris's teaching that community shows up with skillets and fish and oil and determination to feed each other through anything. James's fried whiting fed 47 people that weekend. His church kitchen became relief station. His fish became riot food, grief food, where refused to break food. Each crispy piece tasted like defiance, like love, like community that doesn't abandon each other, even when the world burns. Every crunchy bite declared, "We feed our own. We cook through catastrophe. We survive together." Community tastes like fried fish, served hot, despite everything. Resistance means feeding people when systems fail. Number 23. Butter beans, lima beans, with fatback. Mrs. Ella Baker stood over a pot of butter beans, Hattiesburg, Mississippi. January 1964. Freedom Summer Planning Sessions, running 16-hour days. Volunteers needed feeding. Simple food that stretched far. Beans that cost pennies and fed dozens. She needed something that simmered slow while strategy simmered fast. Something that required attention, but not constant attention. Something that transformed water and dried beans into sustenance through patience and pork fat and time. Dried butter beans soaked overnight, swelling, fat and ready. Fatback salt pork, white and fatty, sliced thick. Into the pot went the fatback first, rendering slowly until the fat ran clear and the meat began to crisp. She added the beans, covered them with water, added black pepper and bay leaves. No salt, yet the fatback would provide plenty. The pot simmered for 3 hours, beans softening gradually, absorbing pork essence. The pot liquor turning creamy with released starch. The fatback melted almost to nothing, leaving only flavor behind. The beans transformed from hard pebbles to creamy, buttery pillows. Each bean tender but intact, suspended in rich pot liquor. During Freedom Summer Planning, January to May 1964, butter beans fed every strategy session. Beans simmering, while organizers debated voter registration tactics. Protein and calories from ingredients that cost almost nothing but time. Movement, food, thinking food. Revolution simmered in pots, while volunteers decided how to transform Mississippi. Fatback releasing flavor. Water becoming pot liquor. Time creating tenderness. The beans teaching that transformation can't be rushed. That good things require soaking, simmering, patient heat. That movements work the same way, slow cooking toward freedom. Those butter beans fed Bob Moses, planning Freedom Summer's structure. Fed Fannie Lou Hamer. Fed college students who'd register voters all summer. Fed local people who'd risk everything to host them. Ella's pot became movement infrastructure. Her beans became strategy fuel. Every creamy spoonful declared, patience feeds progress. Simple, sustains complex planning. Community runs on beans and fatback and time. Revolution simmers, low and long until tender. Change requires soaking in determination and cooking until done. Number 24. Bread pudding from leftover biscuits. Sunday's biscuits becoming Tuesday's dessert. Nothing wasted. Everything transformed. Stale bread reborn through milk and sugar and faith that dry things soften under the right conditions. Heat, moisture, time, and love. April 1965. When the Selma to Montgomery marchers returned home to empty cupboards and exhausted bodies, Mrs. Louise Thornton had leftover church biscuits going hard. She had milk. She had 2 eggs. She had a little sugar. She needed dessert that said, "We celebrate survival. We made it. We marched. We won." Sweet things exist even after hard battles. She crumbled the leftover biscuits into a buttered baking dish, breaking dry bread into rough pieces. She whisked together milk, eggs, sugar, vanilla, cinnamon, nutmeg. The custard poured over the biscuit pieces, soaking in slowly, transforming stale into soft. So let it sit 30 minutes so the biscuits could absorb completely. Into the oven it went, baking until the custard set and the top turned golden brown. The edges crisped slightly, while the center stayed custardy and rich. The smell vanilla and cinnamon and toasted bread filled her kitchen with promise that hard things become soft, dry things become rich. Yesterday's bread becomes today's treasure. During the post-Selma period, bread pudding became victory food, what you made when the march ended and life continued, when activists returned to regular life but needed celebration, when cupboards were sparse but spirits were high, stale bread absorbing custard, eggs binding everything, sugar providing sweetness earned through bitter struggles, the pudding teaching that nothing needs wasting. That transformation works on all things: bread, people, societies given the right conditions. That bread pudding fed marchers at Louise's reunion dinner, fed people who'd walked 54 miles for voting rights, fed children who'd witnessed history. Her kitchen became celebration space. Her pudding became victory, desserts, soft, transformed from what others would have thrown away. Every custardy bite declared, "We transform what's stale. We waste nothing. We sweeten what's hard. We celebrate having walked to freedom." Hope tastes like yesterday's biscuits made tender. Number 25. Oxtails braised low and slow. Before the march, oxtails were cheap. After everyone knew activists by name, oxtails were still cheap because white folks didn't want them. Black folks kept winning by knowing value where others saw scraps. December 1955, when the Montgomery Bus Boycott's first month drained family budgets, Mrs. Georgia Gilmore made oxtails every Sunday anyway, feeding boycott organizers in her kitchen, 37 cents per pound, all-day cooking, feeding the movement one pot at a time. She seasoned oxtails with salt, pepper, garlic powder, paprika, not prime cuts, gelatinous, bony, requiring faith that they'd become tender. Necessity made them Sunday dinner. Georgie browned the oxtails in batches in her Dutch oven, each piece developing deep caramel crust. She removed them, sautéed onions, carrots, celery in the rendered fat. Tomato paste went in, cooking until it darkened and concentrated. Red wine cooking wine, nothing fancy, deglazed the pan, scraping up all the brown bits of flavor. The oxtails returned, nestled in vegetables. Beef stock covered them halfway. Bay leaves, thyme, more black pepper. Into a low oven they went, braising for 4 hours. The collagen melted into silky gravy, and the meat fell tender from the bone. A whole house filled with rich, savory, deep-flavored promise that time transforms tough into tender. During the Montgomery Bus Boycott, December 1955 to December 1956, oxtails fed the club from Noah Georgia Gilmore's secret group, raising money by selling food. Her kitchen became movement headquarters. Her oxtails became fundraising food, sustaining bodies and bankrolls simultaneously. Long braising creating tenderness, collagen becoming gravy. Time teaching that tough cuts require patient heat, sustained pressure, faith in the process. Movements work the same way: long, slow, sustained effort transforming systems. Those oxtails fed Dr. King himself, eating in George's kitchen when restaurants wouldn't serve him. Fed Rosa Parks, fed Edie Nixon. Her kitchen was where movement leaders planned strategy while waiting for meat to fall off bones. Her oxtails became legend, how they tasted like resistance, how they proved that value exists in what others reject. Every fall-off-the-bone piece declared, "We know value, we take time, we transform tough into tender, we win by understanding what others overlook." Resistance braises low and slow until irresistible. Number 26. Fried chicken livers. Chicken livers and hot sauce, 39 cents per pound. 20 people to feed after church. Soak the livers in buttermilk to mellow their intensity. Drain and dry. Season with salt, pepper, cayenne, dust with flour. Heat oil in a cast iron skillet until it shimmers. Drop the livers in carefully, they cook fast. 3 minutes total. The outside crisps to golden brown while the inside stays creamy, just cooked through, mineral-rich and substantial. The smell fills the kitchen iron and spice in hot oil. Drain them on brown paper, hit them with more salt while hot. Serve with hot sauce on the side for those who need extra fire. Minister Franklin Jackson fried his first batch in Birmingham, Alabama. May 1963. Children's Crusade beginning. Hundreds of black children preparing to march into police dogs and fire hoses. Church needed to feed them breakfast. Only chicken livers available at the market when he arrived Thursday night before dawn. Those livers fed courage into children's bellies before they faced Bull Connor's brutality. During the Birmingham Children's Crusade, May 1963, fried chicken livers became protest breakfast. Cheap protein, fast cooking, feeding hundreds from minimal budget. Organ meat providing iron for blood that might be spilled, protein for bodies that would be beaten, calories for courage. Fast frying creating crispy exterior, buttermilk soaking mellowing mineral intensity. Flour providing armor, heat working quick transformation. 3 minutes from raw to ready to fuel revolution. Those livers fed children before they marched into infamy, fed teenagers before they filled Birmingham's jails, fed a generation that would shock the nation with their courage. Minister Jackson's kitchen became movement fuel station. His livers became freedom food. Every crispy, mineral-rich bite declared, "We feed our children before we send them to battle. We give them strength. We feed courage. We feed dignity. We feed resistance that tastes like iron and determination." Revolutions run on fried chicken livers and children's faith. Hit like if you'd feed children before sending them to face dogs. I'm reading every comment from people who understand what love requires. Number 27. Watermelon rind, preserves. Mrs. Septimer Clark stood at her stove, Johns Island, South Carolina. August 1961. Teaching literacy to adults who'd been denied education for generations. Watermelon rinds from Sunday's picnic sitting on a counter what most people threw away. She'd make preserves. Teach her students that reading wasn't the only transformation. That what seems like garbage becomes treasure under the right conditions. She needed something that taught while it cooked. Something that showed that value exists in what others discard. Something sweet that required seeing potential where others saw waste. Literacy worked the same way, seeing readers in people others called illiterate. She peeled the green outer skin from the watermelon rind, leaving the white flesh, cut it into chunks, boiled it in water until tender, drained. Made syrup from sugar, water, lemon juice, a little ginger. When the syrup reached the right consistency, she added the rind pieces. They simmered together, the rind absorbing sweetness, turning translucent and jewel-like. The kitchen filled with the smell of ginger and lemon and concentrated sweetness. Hours of stirring, watching, adjusting heat. The rind transformed from bland and tough to sweet and tender and beautiful. Into mason jars they went, sealed and processed, ready to last through winter. During the citizenship schools, 1957 to 1970, watermelon rind preserves became teaching tools, visual demonstrations that transformation is possible, that what others throw away contains value, that patient effort creates change, that reading and preserving work the same weight, taking raw material and transforming it into something society recognizes as valuable. Sugar penetrating rind, time creating tenderness, heat working alchemy. The preserves teaching that nothing needs wasting, that overlooked things become treasured things, given attention, time, and technique. The people worked the same way. Those preserves sat on Septimer's table during literacy classes, students eating them on biscuits while learning to read. The sweetness reinforcing the lesson. You have value. You contain potential. You can transform. The flavor ginger bright lemon tart, sugar sweet tasted, like possibility made, edible. Every translucent sweet piece declared, we waste nothing. We see value everywhere. We transform what others discard. We teach that change is possible. Literacy tastes like watermelon rind turned into treasure. Who preserves in mason jars. Number 28. Tomato gravy over grits. Tomato gravy. White folks called it depression food. Black folks called it breakfast when the bacon ran out, but the garden kept producing. July tomatoes turning into January memories when canned and stored, and opened on February mornings when winter felt endless. February 1964, when SNCC workers arrived in Greenwood, Mississippi, for voter registration, Mrs. Amzie Moore fed them tomato gravy over grits because that's what she had. Canned tomatoes from her summer garden. Grits from the mill house. No bacon, no sausage, no meat at all. Just tomatoes and grits, and the determination to feed activists working to change Mississippi. She heated bacon grease, saved from last month's precious fat, hoarded carefully. She made a roux, stirring flour into the fat until it browned slightly. Canned tomatoes crushed by her own hands. Last July went in next. Black pepper, salt, a pinch of sugar to balance acidity. The gravy simmered, tomatoes breaking down, thickening into rich red sauce that smelled like summer in winter, like hope preserved and opened when needed most. Meanwhile, grits cooked slow stone-ground corn, white and substantial, stirred constant to prevent lumps. When the grits reached perfect creamy consistency, she ladled tomato gravy over them, red over white, garden over grain. The smell filled her kitchen with comfort that defied poverty's name. During Freedom Summer preparation, tomato gravy fed organizers when meat became unaffordable, when groceries went to bail money, when feeding the movement meant cooking from canned goods and dried staples. Meatless but substantial, simple but flavorful. Poverty, food that fed revolution. Tomatoes preserved at peak ripeness, grits providing calories and comfort. Bacon grease creating flavor memory even when bacon was gone. The dish teaching that gardens feed future resistance. That preservation is revolution. That canning tomatoes in July feeds freedom workers in February. That tomato gravy fed SNCC's Mississippi staff for a week, fed strategy sessions, fed courage into bodies that would face violence. Amzie's kitchen became movement infrastructure. Her canned tomatoes became freedom fuel. Her grits absorbed history. Every tomatoey, savory bite declared, gardens feed revolutions, preservation sustains movements, summer feeds winter, simple feeds complex, hope tastes like tomato gravy over grits when nothing else remains. Number 29. Sokitumi cake. Before Aretha, Sokitumi meant hitting hard. After respect, Sokitumi meant demanding what's yours. The cake took the name because it hits your taste buds with butter, cinnamon, pecans, and the audacity to be delicious while being simple. June 1967. When Aretha Franklin's Respect topped the charts and became the civil rights anthem, Mrs. Pearl Bailey made Sok-It-2-Me cake for her church's Freedom Rally celebration. Yellow cake with cinnamon sugar pecan ribbon running through the middle. Simple ingredients, maximum impact. Like the song, like the movement. She creamed butter and sugar until fluffy and light. Added eggs, one at a time, beating after each. Alternated adding flour, mixture and sour cream, creating tender crumb. She divided the batter, poured half in a greased bundt pan. Mixed cinnamon, brown sugar, chopped pecans for the middle layer. This was the Sokitumi punch. Sprinkled it over the batter, poured remaining batter on top. Into the oven it went, baking until a toothpick came clean. The smell cinnamon, butter, toasted pecans filled the church fellowship hall with anticipation. She made glaze from powdered sugar and milk, drizzled it over the warm cake. Each slice revealed the cinnamon ribbon running through like a surprise, like a punch, like a demand for respect, made edible. During the summer of 1967, Sokitumi cake became movement dessert, showing up at fundraisers, church rallies, celebration dinners. The name connecting to Aretha's anthem. The taste delivering on the name's promise. Demanding attention, demanding respect, demanding you come back for seconds. Butter creating richness, cinnamon providing warmth and spice. Pecans, adding crunch and southern identity. The ribbon running through proving that the best things hide inside, surprising you, demanding recognition. Like black women, like Aretha, like respect. That Sok-It-2-Me cake fed 200 people at Pearl's church rally, fed 3 generations celebrating music that captured their movement, fed people who sang RESPCT while eating cake that delivered exactly what its name promised. Her recipe traveled through black churches faster than the song climbed the charts. Every buttery cinnamon swirled bite declared, we demand respect, we deliver impact, we surprise you with what's inside. We hit hard and taste sweet. Revolution sounds like Aretha and tastes like Sokitumi cake. Number 30. Lemon pound cake for church homecoming. Mrs. Viola Luso's funeral. March 1965. White woman from Detroit murdered for driving black marchers in Alabama. Her body returned north, but southern black churches sent lemon pound cakes anyway, because that's what you do. You feed grief. You feed mourners. You feed the living who remain to continue the fight. Lemon pound cake became civil rights era's official we care food. What you made when someone died for the movement. When victory came. When defeat stung. When churches celebrated homecoming and everyone who'd gone north came back south to remember where they came from. Mrs. Adelaide Johnson made her mother's recipe, Atlanta, Georgia, every church homecoming Sunday. A pound of butter, a pound of sugar, a pound of eggs, a pound of flour. The original pound cake ratio is updated with lemon zest and lemon juice for brightness. She creamed butter and sugar until pale and fluffy. 15 minutes of beating, building air and structure. Added eggs one at a time, incorporating completely before the next. Lemon zest went in, releasing oil and fragrance. Flour folded in gently, preserving all that beaten in air. Lemon juice added last, creating tender crumb into a prepared loaf pan, baked low and slow. The cake rose golden and proud, the smell of lemon and butter filling her kitchen. While it cooled, she made lemon-glazed powdered sugar and lemon juice, poured over the warm cake. Each slice was dense, tender, bright with lemon, rich with butter, perfect. Throughout the civil rights era, lemon pound cake showed up everywhere. Church homecomings, funeral repasts, celebration dinners. The cake that said, we remember, we honor, we continue, we feed forward. Butter and sugar beaten until light. Eggs adding structure and richness. Lemon providing brightness against weight. The cake teaching that heavy things can be lifted, that richness needs brightness, that complexity requires balance. Adelaide's lemon pound cake fed every major moment at Ebenezer Baptist Church from 1960 to 1968, fed Dr. King himself, fed homecoming celebrations, fed funeral repasts for fallen activists, fed victory parties and defeat gatherings alike. Her recipe became church legacy, passed from baker to baker, each one maintaining Adelaide's ratios, Adelaide's technique, Adelaide's standard. Every lemon bright butter-rich slice declared, we gather, we remember, we honor, we continue. Community tastes like lemon pound cake at church homecoming. Tradition survives struggle. Love feeds forward through recipes and memory and butter and bright hope.